All right, we are live. So I'm Chris Baer with Castle Wealth Group, certified financial planner, certified elder law attorney, and we do these workshops uh, about once a week when we can, just to answer questions people submit either ahead of time or on the call. So we have a couple questions just came in, and I always like to start with positive focus, just something positive that's happened over the last week. Um, Coached my daughter in soccer. We ended up winning 3-0. It was an exciting game. So that's my positive focus. All right, let's get into the questions. So first question submitted by email. Let me pull it up. Hold on, just had it. All right. Dear Chris, is the entire system of elder care in America designed to bankrupt the middle class? Because when you look at the cost of long-term care, assisted living, and how quickly families burn through savings, it really makes you wonder, who's the system actually working for? Um, so that's a little bit of a loaded question. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of talk about my experience in being an elder law attorney for 20 years and what I've seen. I'd say from the beginning, the system's a little bit broken in terms of what we see in terms of levels of care. And what we see is what we call the elder care continuum. We start out relatively healthy, and then as we need help, we might bring in home care, or a spouse might be a caregiver, or we might have to private pay for home care to come in. Then maybe we transition to independent or assisted living, and then assisted living with memory care, and then potentially nursing home costs. And current stats say 1 out of 2 individuals will suffer in a nursing home. 3 out of 4 will need some form of long-term care, according to a Genworth study that I saw. So long-term care is a huge concern. And that's one of the reasons I got into elder law and financial planning and estate planning, as opposed to just estate planning. So I started off just doing estate planning, which is wills and trusts, and that's planning for what happens when someone passes away. But very early in my practice, I wasn't getting calls of that. I was getting calls that, hey, my mom fell, broke her hip, is going to a nursing home, or I have a parent with dementia or spouse with dementia, and now we're starting this long-term care journey. So I think in 2008, I became a certified elder law attorney. So even before that, I was doing elder law, but that's when I think I passed my CELA exam. And so we wanted to come up with legal structures, ways to protect the money and make sure the money lasts as long as possible to pay for long-term care, to make sure the person gets the best care possible. And then as part of that, clients were approaching us about investments and financial planning and all the stuff that goes along with it. So we added all the additional services that go along with that. And I became a certified financial planner. We manage investments, et cetera. But in terms of long-term care, that is something where we've seen the prices just skyrocket. Right? And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. And I remember when I started, a nursing home was maybe like $6,000 to $8,000 a month. But I think there's a couple things in place. And also understand there's only 6 ways we can pay for long-term care, and this has been true for the last 20 years. One is we can private pay, we pay out of our own funds. Second, we can have the kids pay. A lot of times they don't pay financially, they pay in terms of their time. Third, we can have long-term care insurance, and that industry has changed a lot over the last 20 years. Where initially we saw a lot of the pure long-term care insurance policies, but those had 2 big problems. One was they could increase the premiums on you at any time. And then the second big problem is that if you don't use it, all that money is wasted. And then the third problem was that people were using the policies, and the life insurance or the life insurance, long-term care insurance companies got out of the business because it wasn't profitable for them anymore. So it's actually really hard to find. There's not many companies that offer any type of pure traditional long-term care insurance policies moving forward. So now we see like hybrid policies, which is linking a long-term care benefit to a death benefit, or linking a long-term care benefit to an income benefit. So we are doing those. Fourth is Medicare, but Medicare really only pays for short-term rehab. Fifth is the veterans benefit, or VA benefit, which can, if you're a veteran or surviving spouse, can pay for any type of long-term care. And we've seen a lot of changes there too, where when I started, I was a VA accredited attorney doing the elder law side of things. 2018, they changed the VA rules where now there's like a 3-year look back period, similar to how Medicaid has a 5-year look back period. And it made it really difficult for veterans to now qualify for that VA benefit. And then the sixth way to pay for long-term care is through Medicaid. Now, Medicaid, there's lots of different Medicaid programs, but really I'm talking about nursing home Medicaid. And Medicaid really is only going to pay for nursing home care. It's not really going to pay for home care, assisted living, et cetera. So one of the big things I've seen is we've had huge changes to the VA benefit, how that works. We've had huge changes to long-term care insurance, how that works. Medicaid has been relatively since 2006, kind of the same program. Little details will change. Probably the biggest change we saw recently was for a single individual, Medicaid has an asset test and you can only have $2,000 worth of countable assets. And it was like that for as long as I could remember. But then this past year, they changed that number to 9,600. So they finally kind of adjusted it at least a little bit for inflation. But something I've always told my clients, I think the long-term care system is kind of broken. And I was saying this years ago because we have programs like that can pay for Medicaid, but we don't have a lot to pay for home care or assisted living with memory care. Because if we don't have the kids paying, if we don't have long-term care insurance, Medicare only covers short-term rehab. The VA benefit can help a little bit if we're a veteran or surviving spouse. Really, it's private paying and then having Medicaid to cover the nursing home costs. So I just thought the system was a little oddly set up in terms of we have programs to pay for nursing home care, but we don't have programs to keep people out of nursing homes. So I don't ever think, at least as long as I've been practicing, that it's a perfect process. And the fact that people have to hire me to help them navigate this long-term care journey obviously shows it's not necessarily a perfect practice, just like the tax code. Like, why does the tax code have to be so complicated? But then a couple things happened. So the cost of care has skyrocketed from when I started to what it is now. I remember when I started, like a nursing home would be $6,000 to $8,000 a month. And now I got off the call with the family a week or two ago, and the husband's going in a nursing home and it's going to be $15,000 a month. Okay. And I think there's a couple of factors in there. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a conspiracy or anything, but I think a couple of things happened. One, when I started, it was kind of the beginning of the baby boomers kind of getting into that age where they need long-term care. So prior to me starting, and I don't know the exact cutoff for baby boomers or not, but I just remember the statistics is that with all these baby boomers kind of getting older, they're all going to need long-term, they're not all going to need, but it's going to put more stress on the long-term care system, right? Because the generation before, there's less people, the generation after, there's less people. And so I think it created the supply and demands of, okay, there's more and more people needing an assisted living. And I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago, like you drive around and there's like home care companies popping up just like Starbucks everywhere. And then you see all these assisted livings being built and everything. And so they built the facilities, but they started running into issues with staffing. And then, so that caused the cost to go up. And then the big thing that happened was the pandemic, 2020, where the cost for everything just skyrocketed because now no one wanted to work and concerns about everything going on in the world. So they couldn't find caregivers. They couldn't find support staff, or if they did, they had to now overpay, which again causes the cost to go up. So I think I don't have a solution for it. I just understood what some of the stresses were in terms of the system. And so it's our goal to really help families try to navigate this kind of screwed up system. And I will say that it's more difficult to navigate it now than it was 10 years ago. And again, it's always a two-piece part with long-term care. One is like figuring out, okay, where are we going to receive the care that we need? And then the second piece is how do we pay for it? So it is complicated, and it's something that's always changing. And we even had a big, beautiful bill that passed forth, has a lot of changes to Medicaid, but nothing that really affects nursing home Medicaid. So I don't have a good solution, but we try to look at the rules and try to help our families kind of navigate it the best way that they can. All right, let me see. What other questions do we have? Do you plan on crypto investments in the future? Do you have a good place to learn more about crypto? So this is the Bitcoin and all of that. I remember probably 7 years ago. Yeah, I had families kind of come in and like they had a lot of money in Bitcoin and it was up, but then it all dropped. And now it's up again. So I look at crypto as something it's volatile. And a lot of people originally looked at crypto as something that wasn't necessarily correlated to the stock market. But if we look at the stock market and we look at like Bitcoin, everything's went up. So it might be more correlated than we think it is. Currently, we don't assist our clients with their Bitcoin and crypto, that type of thing. We have a lot of compliance that we have to jump through. So I'm not against it. And I put that into that alternatives category where as you're near retirement, if you want to have maybe 0 to 10% in kind of alternatives, that's great. But I wouldn't necessarily want to be, at least me personally, putting my whole life savings, my whole retirement into crypto. Is it okay to kind of sprinkle on it a little bit? Sure, yeah. But I wouldn't have 100% of your net worth in crypto if you're close to retirement. Well, even if you're not, but the closer to get retirement, typically most families want to be less volatile just because now they have to pull money out of those accounts. So the concern is something that can drop like 50% in a year. I don't want my retirement based on just Bitcoin still doing good. So at this point, we're not managing any crypto for clients. Next question. Can you put a Roth IRA into a castle trust? So two pieces to it. First, a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is money that you've paid tax on and grows tax-free. And second is a castle trust, which is a form of asset protection trust that can protect you from lawsuits, creditors, et cetera. And of course, we cannot put a traditional IRA into an asset protection trust because you've never paid tax. But we can do with the Roth, and this is more of a financial planning question, depending on when we think we're going to need the money. You can take money out of the Roth and put it into the trust, and there's no taxable consequence. And then now that it's owned by the trust, it's asset protected for nursing home Medicaid spend down once you make it to 5 years. And then it goes to the kids tax-free. Anything going from a trust goes to kids tax-free. Now, if you keep it as a Roth, you can use it during your lifetime without paying any capital gains, but understand that the Roth is not asset protected. So typically what we would recommend if we have a castle trust, just as a general rule is, yeah, let's pull the money out of the Roth. There's no taxable consequence, throw it in the trust. Now it's asset protected, goes to the kids tax-free. But everyone's situation is a little bit different. Another question, can you please discuss the FDIC insurance maximum for the castle trust? So the FDIC insurance, that's going to be for like your checking, savings, high yield savings accounts, things like that. And it depends on where you go. Like we have a high yield savings account that offers like $1 million of FDIC protection, and that can be owned by an asset protection trust. So it kind of depends on where you go, which bank and how they operate. But as a general rule, you can have up to $250,000 of FDIC protection in like a checking account or a savings account or a trust account. And each one you could have more FDIC protection. But we do have solutions that offer more than that, more than the 250, regardless of whether it's the trust or not. After tax accounts, cash, CDs, money market, brokerage accounts, things like that. Yeah. So the FDIC coverage only is like the cash and CDs, money markets, checking, savings, high yield savings accounts. You could have like brokerage accounts that are after tax as well, or a trust account is after tax as well. Yep. So, all right. See anything else? All right. So that's all I got. I appreciate the questions. If you do have more questions,